friends, welcome back to This Homeschooling Naturopath. My name is Hannah and I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 little girls who are 9, 7, and 5, and I'm also a fully qualified naturopath living and working in New Zealand. On this channel I share content related to homeschooling, homemaking, motherhood, as well as little tidbits of naturopathic info throughout some of our videos here. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I teach history in our homeschool. So if you're interested to see how I teach my kids history, stay tuned. First up, if anyone here watched our group subject picks for the 2023 school year, you would have seen Story of the World Volume 1. Story of the World has 4 volumes. I won't be able to name them all. I know that the first one is Story of the World Volume 1, which is Ancient Times, and the second one, which I also have here ready to go next, is Story of the World Volume 2, which focuses on the Middle Ages. For Story of the World Volume 1, I laid it out in a very different way than it is, I guess, made to be laid out. I didn't read every chapter one after the other, and I did not read the chapters in chronological date order. My children are very young. When we started this last year, they were 8, 6, and 4, and to be honest, the timeline of events makes absolutely no sense to them, regardless of if I explain it or not. You know, 10,000 AD is completely irrelevant to a child. So we did not teach this in a chronological order. Instead, what I did is I went through and I chunked the chapters that went together. So I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you guys how I laid this out and how I've been teaching this for the past year in our homeschool. So instead of reading every chapter how it's listed out in Story of the World, I went through and I decided what chapters would fit with what other chapters. For example, all of the chapters relating to India, I put all together. These ones, as well as the ones from way later on. All of the chapters related to ancient China, I put together. The chapters related to ancient Egypt, I put together, and so on and so forth. So that is what you're going to see throughout my planning here, and please excuse my messy sticky notes. I have to admit, when I wrote this, I was not intending on showing anyone. So we started off with our own family history. That was so much fun. We got a free trial from Ancestry, and we looked at our own family history. We made our own family trees. We made our own timelines, which I will put some footage of in here. We need to add some more pictures to them because they're a little bit outdated at this point. Next we moved on to nomads, which were cavemen. And then we moved on to chapter 3, 4, and then 12, 13, back to chapter 5, then chapter 6, and then back to chapter 14. So this was our study on ancient Egypt. So all of these chapters here that you see, these are the chapters that relate to ancient Egypt in the Story of the World novel. So this was basically a whole unit study on ancient Egypt, mummification, ancient Egyptian religion, all of that type of thing, and we had so much fun with it. I will insert some photos here if I can. I obviously wasn't taking video footage at that point in time. And you can see here that I allowed 8 weeks for this study. And I put in here all of my messy writing. These are the activities that I wanted to get done for each chapter, as well as some books that we already had on hand, and some resources from twinkle.co.nz, which I have a subscription to. We did end up making clay cuneiforms, as well as making our own papyrus paper, which was a lot of fun. We made apple mummies, which didn't actually end up working out very well, unfortunately. I'm not too sure what we did wrong there, but yeah, we didn't do it properly. Following our study of ancient Egypt, we moved straight on to the chapters relating to ancient Greece. And this is how I laid these out. Again, allowing 6 to 8 weeks for this study. And I picked out the chapters relating specifically to ancient Greece. Again, some of the activities that I had planned to do, some of the resources that I planned for. Like I said, Story of the World has like hundreds and hundreds of craft activities, recipes, artwork you can do, all types of really amazing ideas, and this is only as fun as you make it. And I think that, okay, Greek gods. Again, these are just some of the craft projects that I wanted to complete throughout this study. The War of the Greeks, craft project we wanted to do, all the way to Alexander the Great. And that was the last chapter and the end of our term. Now, as for all of the other chapters in here that are not related to ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, or ancient Rome, we did those pretty independently of anything else. All of the other chapters, for example, the Assyrians, the chapters relating to India and China, the chapters relating to Africa and the Americas, I read all of those chapters independently because we actually ran out of time last year because we started this in term 2. We had all of term 2 for ancient Egypt, all of term 3 was for ancient Greece, and then term 4 I did not have a specific study because we were doing Christmas stuff, Thanksgiving stuff, and really getting into holiday mode. So I did not plan a specific study. I was going to move straight into ancient Rome, but I decided that it would be best suited for the start of this year, which is why we're doing it now. All of the other chapters throughout Story of the World I have read during morning basket time. So to get specific, how I teach history is as follows. I will read the chapter from Story of the World. For example, today we read the part of the chapter relating to gladiators in ancient Rome. If I can, here we go. This is chapter 28, and we've broken this up into 2 weeks because I wanted to cover the Roman gods really well. So last week we only talked about the Roman gods, which was just part of this chapter. And then today we read through the chapter of the gladiators as well as the gladiator school. So I read through these, and then I found some YouTube videos relating to gladiators. There were some good little segments of documentaries that had a lot of the ancient gladiator armor that they wore during their fights, and a lot of discussion about how we know this. One of my daughters said to me, how do we know that gladiators look like this? And so we kind of dove in to try and figure out, well, how do we know that gladiators look like this? And then we figured out that it's because of all the art and all the writing and all of the leftover armor from that time period. So we read through the chapter, we watched the videos, we had a little bit of a discussion, and then I got out my teacher's guide here, which for chapter 28, it has the review questions for that particular chapter that we read. So I asked them, well, what did gladiators do? Did they feel lucky doing this? What happened when they fought in the arena? And then as for the gladiator school, again, I just asked those questions. We had the discussion about it. I asked them to narrate back to me what we had just read. And then we finished off with a little bit of a craft activity, which only my youngest took part in. My 5-year-old did this little activity here, which she didn't quite complete because she got bored. This is from twinkle.co.nz. I will put the link in the description box below. I do have a paid subscription to Twinkle. I should have put that in my technology video, but it completely slipped my mind. So there you go. That is something else that I pay for per month in our homeschool. So I pay to get all of these resources from Twinkle. I love it. I will continue paying for it because it is very, very useful. I love being able to go on there and find activities and easy crafts that I can just print, and they're relevant to our homeschool and my kids really enjoy them. So anyways, I printed this out the other day. These are the gladiators' weapons, armor, I don't know. And then she could have also labeled his things, but she's 5. She wasn't gonna do that. So anyway, yeah, that's what we had going on for our gladiator today. And also another cool thing I got off Twinkle is these beautiful passport in time, the Romans. We haven't put these together yet, but we'll probably do this tomorrow. It sort of has all of the important sections that we're going to be covering throughout our study of ancient Rome. As you can see, we cut them out and then we'll staple them together. And then there are these cute little, almost like passport stamps, but it says studied. So that's what we're gonna be doing with those. And then at the end of our study of ancient Rome, we'll have these cute little pamphlets, our little passport in time for our study of ancient Rome. So we don't have any like specific books, notebooks, or anything like that for Story of the World. I find it a lot more fruitful to just have the activities, to just have the craft and the art and the discussion. I think that that is so much more fruitful than them sitting down and like being forced to write about something that they're not truly invested in. The discussion is the most important part of our homeschool, sitting down, having that quality time, that quality discussion where they are able to ask questions and I'm able to ask questions and we can wonder and explore together. That is the most fruitful part of teaching history, which I love. So to go along with our Story of the World and with the things that I'm able to resource off Twinkle, I also, of course, probably like everybody else, I get out stacks and stacks of books from the library, as well as hunt down any books in our home that we have related to the topic. So these are a few of the books that I've either got secondhand or they are library books. So here we go. This one is so cool. Here, okay, the Colosseum. So it shows you what it would have looked like during the time of the Roman Empire and then what it looks like today. So neat. Love. My girls have loved this book. They definitely don't read anything out of it, but this in itself is so much fun. And there's quite a few different Roman monuments throughout it, which are so much fun. Love. All right, a couple of library books here. I try not to buy too many books anymore because we've got way too many. So I do definitely source from the library when I see some. This is also a library book. That one. This is also a library book. This is our last library book, Pompeii. We haven't got to Pompeii yet, and in fact I don't know if it's actually in Story of the World, but we'll definitely be covering it because so interesting. Love. Can't wait to talk about it. We've talked about Pompeii before, so we'll definitely be talking about it more in depth. And I do know that there is a Magic Treehouse book that relates to Pompeii, so we'll definitely be reading that as well. I've got Step In to the Roman Empire. This is full of beautiful craft ideas, different art ideas, drama, how they heated their water, all of that type of thing. Love. So many good ideas. We'll definitely be pulling from there. Why did Romans march? This will be good when we talk about Roman soldiers. And then this book was gifted to us. Thank you so much to the beautiful woman that gave this to us. Roman Diary. Can't wait to read this to the girls also. Next up, I also source chapter books. If you guys saw our morning basket time, you would have seen this guy in there, A Gladiator Stole My Lunchbox. We are loving this. It is so much fun. I love the colloquial language that's in it. It's so interesting for the girls to listen to, and I'm also really enjoying reading it. A lot of fun. I've also got this one here, which I don't remember where I got it from. It's My Story, the Roman Invasion. This is from a Celtic perspective. That looks interesting from a different perspective. I've got Horribly Famous, Julius Caesar. Ruthless Romans from Horrible Histories. And Rotten Romans from Horrible Histories. I love these horrible history books because they have cool pictures and illustrations. So along with our library books, our chapter books, our YouTube videos, and our actual Story of the World novel and craft ideas and all of that I put together, I also have a big variety of games here. The first game that we play often is this Brain Box World History. Absolutely love. We'll play these like before bedtime, you know, sort of when it's before bedtime book reading. There's a little timer that comes in it, as well as a dice, which is not in here. And I have loved this throughout our study of the ancient world because it goes through our ancient study so perfectly. Here we go, right from cavemen in the Stone Age. We've got some cards about ancient Egypt. Basically how this game works, I'm sure you're probably all familiar with. You put the timer on, you'll roll the dice. You have, it might be 10 seconds to look at the card, and then the person holding the card will quickly turn it away, and then they'll ask you the question on the back related to the number that you got when you rolled the dice. So there's just fun facts on these cards. We do make them a bit easier for my younger ones. For example, what color was the pharaoh's hat? Or what color was the pharaoh's necklace? Did the pharaoh have a beard? That type of thing, rather than asking the actual questions, just because my 5-year-old can't read yet. We've got some stuff related to ancient Greece here. Alexander the Great. This world history game, it goes along perfectly with Story of the World Volume 1, and I absolutely love this game. Highly recommend. The next one we have here is the World Brain Box. Very similar, except this is going through different countries throughout the world. So this isn't necessarily history, this is more geography, but of course, as you'll be aware, geography and history often go along hand in hand, especially in Story of the World. While I'm teaching history, we are also learning geography, which is beautiful. I've actually stuffed this with an extra world pack. I bought secondhand, like the world extras, so that's why it's jam-packed so much. I can barely even get the cards out. What have we got? South Africa. So again, the exact same thing. Oh, this one does have the dice in it. There you go. So you'll roll the dice, you'll put the timer on, you'll look at it for the 10 seconds. The person holding it will pull it away and ask you the question that relates to the number you got when you rolled the dice. And if you get it right, you get to keep the card. Whoever has the most cards at the end wins. So there you go. The third brain box I've got here is Vile Villains. I have to say we've not played this one very often. It relates to history because it is the vile villains throughout history. I'll try and find one here that's relevant to... Oh, here we've got Ivar the Boneless. Ivar the Boneless. Okay, from the Vikings. Anyways, it just goes through lots of different villains throughout history, and it is the Horrible Histories Vile Villains Brain Box version. I also got this one secondhand. Next up, I've got Professor Noggin, Ancient Civilizations. This is so amazing. We play this game often. It travels with us when we're sitting at gymnastics and swimming and whatnot. I absolutely love this game. And again, it makes the history we're learning relevant for my girls, which I think makes them more interested in learning it. So it comes with the dice. Here we go. Perfect example. We've got some ancient Egyptian things here. So when it's your turn, you'll roll the dice, look at the card, and then the person will ask the question on the back, and you get to decide whether you want the student or the scholar. The scholar questions are a little bit trickier than the student section, so we normally stay on this side. So you'll roll the dice. Oh, I got one. Pharaohs were rulers of what ancient civilization? Well, do you know? You can comment down below if you know the answer. So it's a lot of fun. The pictures don't always relate to the question, so it really gets my girls thinking. So noggin I've got here is countries of the world. Again, this isn't history related, but it's geography related, which goes hand in hand in my opinion. This is another one that we love, traveling across the world pretty much with cards. Really like that one. This ancient history matching game. It is pretty self-explanatory. You lie all of the cards out and it is a matching memory game. So you just lie them all out and then, you know how you play matching games. The person, when it's your turn, you lift one, you lift another one. If you found a match, you get to keep them. If you didn't, you flip them over. Yeah. I love the pictures on them. Colosseum, very relevant to what we are studying. We've got some ancient Egyptian ones. Again, very relevant to what we're studying. Great Wall of China, the Sphinx, etc. All right, so basically in a nutshell, that is how we teach history here in our homeschool. A lot of books, a lot of videos, a lot of reading, a lot of discussion, a lot of games, a lot of crafts, a lot of art, a lot of painting and clay and all of that really fun stuff that makes learning history fun and interactive and interesting. That is how I am teaching from Story of the World. I have mentioned on here before that I am American. However, I've lived in New Zealand for, oh my goodness, like 15 years, I think. A long time. Most of my life at this point. Along with world history that we have been learning, I also teach my kids little tidbits of American history. Here and there. It is something that we'll talk about during morning basket time because I do feel like it is important. So that being said, I've only got 2 things to show you guys here, but we do most definitely use other resources here and there that I don't have to show you guys. A lot of online resources, YouTube, Twinkle, things that I'll print out randomly here and there. For example, on Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, we're back. Sorry, my memory card was full. I had to quickly delete some stuff. I was saying, for example, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I printed out quite a few resources related to the civil rights movement. That is something that we've discussed a lot in our homeschool. My children are definitely quite well versed in the basics of American history. I tried last year actually. I printed out a unit from Gather Round Homeschool, which was American government, or United States government or something like that. I'll try and find a picture of it and link it here. So I did actually try and do that in term 3 last year, but it ended up being a disaster. We only studied it for about 2 weeks and then I had to change to something else because it was way too, not uninteresting, but just too advanced for my children at this stage. But we definitely got through the basics of like the American Revolution, the Civil War, and the Civil Rights Movement, which in my opinion are, some of the most important things to cover. So we really just covered the basics of American history right now. I don't have a specific curriculum for that. I will wait until we get to, I think it is in volume 4 of Story of the World. So we're going to be in volume 2 next year, moving on to volume 3 and the year after that. And a year later, we'll be doing volume 4, which I'm pretty sure American history is quite predominant in that volume. So I will wait until we get there to really cover American history well. And all my kids will be a little bit older by that point, and it will be a little bit more relevant, hopefully, for them. While we live in New Zealand, it is still important to me. My kids are still American citizens, and it is important to teach American history, in my opinion, for my half-American children, because one day they might want to move there. They might like to call the United States their home. They might be US president someday, and I want to make sure that they know the history of where they are from, as well as the history of where they are from here in New Zealand. And of course, New Zealand history is something that we covered very in depth. We did a whole unit on New Zealand history at the start of 2022, and that is why we were late starting on Story of the World. That's why we didn't start Story of the World until term 2 last year, because the whole term 1 we spent on New Zealand history, as well as the history of Oceania, because that to me was important to cover our home where we live before we started branching out into other countries in the world and ancient history, which isn't very relevant for them at this point in time. And the way that I taught New Zealand history and the history of Oceania was with Gather Round's Oceania unit. We did that in term 1 of 2022, and honestly, that was, I could get emotional thinking about it, the best term of our homeschooling journey so far. I have so many incredibly fond memories of doing that unit with my kids, and maybe I'll do a whole review on Gather Round Homeschool's Oceania, because it was just such a beautiful, fruitful unit that we did. Okay, I'm gonna move on. I was talking about American history. American history, here we go. How I teach little tidbits of American history in our homeschool is I have this bad boy in our morning basket, the history of the United States. I got this on Amazon. We went to the US for a holiday in November last year. November 2022, I ordered a crazy amount of money's worth of homeschooling curriculum that I wanted to bring back to New Zealand with us, and this was one thing I got off Amazon. We love this. Again, this is Professor Noggin, exactly the same as the other two I showed you before. It has the little dice. You have the little picture here, World War I. You roll the dice, you get the number, the person will ask you, here we go, true or false. The nickname Uncle Sam was first used during World War I. True or false? Did you know? Write your answer down below. I'll tell you if it's true or false when I reply. And next up, another thing I brought home from the US was the American Patriots Almanac. This is also in our morning basket, and every day I open up to the page that we are on. Today is February 23rd, so this is what we read today. I have to admit that my kids aren't the most interested in a lot of these stories. I kind of will summarize them. I'll read them just beforehand, and I will very briefly summarize them, because a lot of it is, they find it quite boring. Or what I'll do is just read through these bullet points here, which are slightly more interesting. For example, today, the President-elect Abraham Lincoln arrived secretly in Washington, D.C. amid reports of assassination plots, and that was in 1861. So, old President Lincoln. I really like these two resources for teaching little bits of American history here and there. Again, we will cover U.S. history very in depth in the future. When my kids are a little bit older, they will be well versed in American patriotism. So our plans for history moving forward in our homeschool, we will most definitely be continuing on with Story of the World. We will be finishing off volume 1 by the end of this term. This term will end about the second week of April. Our first term will end, and by then I plan to be finished with all chapters of Story of the World, and I am excited to pack it away and move on to Story of the World Volume 2, which is all ready to go. I have got the novel here, as well as the teacher guide. The teacher guide is way bigger than the teacher guide for Volume 1, so I'm really interested to see why this is so jam-packed. I probably will not be breaking this down how I did Volume 1 into big unit studies. I think I will read this chronologically, only because I'm not so well versed in medieval history. It's not my strongest suit. Ancient Egypt and ancient Greece are. In fact, I actually went to university for quite some time, and I specialized in classical history, so ancient Egypt and ancient Greece are my jam. However, I am not so well versed in medieval history, so I'm not very confident and I don't feel like I'm able to break it up into specific chunks, so I think we will read this straight through. I plan to just read a chapter from this, do the narration exercises from this, as well as the map work and the coloring and the activities, and that will pretty much be how we will do history following this term for the rest of the year. This is what we will be using, and I'm really excited to move in to volume 2. I've heard great things about it and I can't wait to read up. And following on from this, as I already said, we'll most definitely be continuing on with Story of the World volume 3 and 4 whenever we get to those points. Alright you guys, that is going to be it from me. My coffee is cold now, it's raining outside, and I think it's time to put on a nice documentary on the TV and sit and relax for the rest of the afternoon. If anyone ever wonders where my kids are while I'm filming, they're here. They're most definitely here. And they creep around in the background and they sneak up and they do all kinds of weird stuff, and then later on I have to edit it all out. But you know, here we are, the joys. Alright, that is going to be all from me. Thank you guys so much for joining today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to see you guys again in the next video. Please like and subscribe. I would love to have you guys here. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.